Today, we turn the page to see the dawn of a new age, where dreams of young hearts shall see the light of the day.
Seas to hills we claim our chance to pave the way. Unify hand in hand, we sing an anthem of hope, an anthem of peace. Our voice tomorrow sustains, leading the change our world needs to see, the change we shall be. It's time to change the tide of fate and set our hearts on fire. And we will never stop until we break the chains that bind us down. We reap that which we sow. Let our actions flow for tomorrow. Unify hand in hand, we sing an anthem of hope, an anthem of peace. Our voice tomorrow sustains, leading the change. Our chance to pave the way. Unify hand in hand, we sing an anthem of hope, an anthem of peace. Our voice tomorrow sustains, leading the change our world needs to see, the change we shall be.
Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you're tuning in from around the world. And welcome to Unify, the United International Federation of Youth of Water and Climate, where we let our actions flow for tomorrow. I'm so excited to finally have you here on board and meet you all virtually. And this session is live streamed on our Facebook and YouTube channels. So today I will be your presenter, and my name is Davila, and I'm from Fiji. I'm also the regional youth focal point for Oceania. So if you haven't already, kindly put your name and the country from which you're tuning in from in the chat, and just so we can get to know more about where everyone is tuning in from. As I see, we already have people messaging in the chat. We have Shima. Hi, Shima, from Sudan. Thank you for joining in. We also have Adekunle from Nigeria. Thank you as well for joining in. Hi, Razan from Iraq. And hi, Kambi from PNG, repping our region. All right. So for today's session, we'll be talking about what Unify is all about. and I'll shed more light on where and how we as youths can be a part of this impactful journey. So next slide, please. All right, so let's first start off with having you guys also mention in the chat group which expression of these 9 photos would represent the mood that you're currently in right now. For me, I feel like I'm number 8. I'm pretty excited. And you could also have a mix of emotions as well. So please do let us know which mood that you're currently in. So we have Amit, your mood is number 2. I guess that would be a bit intrigued, slightly intrigued. We have Renata, thank you, also excited for today's session. And we also have those who are in mood number 9 who are actually kind of hungry, okay, I would assume. All right, amazing. Let's move on to the next slide. Okay, we have another icebreaker here. If you could just scan the QR code or follow the link that will be in the chat, one of our representatives will include the link there. Just tell us in one word what comes to your mind when you hear the word youth. The link is there in the chat group. Please feel free to answer. So some people have said change. Yes, youth can bring about change, and they're agents of change within their communities and their areas. Someone has said energetic. Yes, youth are very energetic. We're innovative. We have a lot of ideas that we want to put into paper. Change makers. Yes, youth are change makers, and action as well. We have youth are have energy or are energetic. We are leaders. Yes, we're leaders not of the future, not only of the future, but of change, energy, and leadership. Yes, awesome. Backbone of the community. I love that one. Yes, we are. All right. So as we move on to the next slide, feel free to continue adding on what word comes to mind in the chat group or even in this Mentimeter. All right. So now we have the agenda. Today's agenda, we have 8 items that will be discussed. First, we'll have the introduction to the team. What is Unify? We'll discuss the core objectives, the youth development plan and agenda, the communications channel, roles and responsibility, what's next, or how you can help Unify or work with Unify and support, and further questions and answers. Moving on to the next slide, we will be discussing the first item on the agenda, which is the introduction to the team. So first we have Jan Kyrel Guillermo from the Philippines. He's the Youth Engagement Officer for the Water and Climate Coalition within the World Meteorological Organization, and Unify is actually his brainchild. We also have Susmita Mishra from Nepal, who's the regional youth focal point for Central and South Asia, and Anjanette Banteles from the Philippines, who's the regional youth focal point for East and Southeast Asia. So both Susmita and Anjanette are also the interim global youth focal points for Unify. Moving forward, we also have Peshang Hama Karim from Iraq. He is the regional youth focal point for North Africa and Western Union. And Malik Ramdan from Tunisia, who's also the regional youth focal point for the same region. We have Zainab Zahid from Pakistan, who's the regional youth focal point for Central and South Asia. We also have Brian Kakembo from Uganda and Titilayo Adebayo from Nigeria, and they're both the regional youth focal points for sub-Saharan Africa. We also have Zihan Swan from China, who's the regional youth focal point for East and Southeast Asia. And as we move forward, we also have Maria Mercedes Curi from Argentina, who's the regional youth focal point for Latin America and the Caribbean. Alongside her is Ernesto Ojedo Canto from Mexico, who's also regional youth focal point for Latin America and the Caribbean. We have Kazaya Gersano from the United States, who is the finance and partnerships lead. And we have myself, as mentioned earlier, the regional youth focal point for Oceania. We have Jay Gaspar from the Philippines, who's the communications coordinator, Prakash Lama from Nepal, who's the admin assistant and graphic designer, and Paulo de la Torre from the Philippines, who's the graphic designer and graphic designer assistant. So if you look at our communications channel and social media, these are the team that are basically in charge of our social media channels. Moving forward, we'll be discussing more about what is Unify. So this slide discusses what Unify is and how it was formed. So we had the World Meteorological Organization and 10 other UN agencies, along with private organizations, who realized that in this game, in the SDG game, there was SDG 6 and 13, they were actually lagging behind. So to bring them forward into the race, these 11 organizations basically came together and they forged together the Water and Climate Coalition. And in order to have a greater youth representation, the youth component of the Water and Climate Coalition basically created Unify. So Unify is a branding for two initiatives. We have the movement and the festival. In a nutshell, for the movement, Unify, it's not an organization, rather it's a platform that brings together youth organizations to forge our forces and work together around water and climate issues. We also have the festival, which is the official youth conference, and it also brings youth from all backgrounds together to work around the climate and water issues that are present. Next slide, please. Okay, so we also have some achievements that Unify has been involved in. There was a joint endorsement between the World Meteorological Organization and the United Nations Office of the Secretary General's Envoy on Youth. So with this joint endorsement, we have the recognition and the support of the UN Envoy of Youth. In addition, if we go on to the next slide, Unify is also recognized by the major group of children and youths as the official youth constituency, and Unify will also be a part of the UN processes and its activities. Moving forward, Unify was also presented during the briefing on the UN 2023 Water Conference, which was held around April 2022 of last year. And the next slide, please. Unify was also present in the Dushanbe water process and was the co-host for the Youth and Children Forum. Unify's water and climate agenda was also recognized as the official youth input at the UN 2023 Water Conference. All right, so now we have core objectives. So basically, these core objectives are what drives Unify. The first core objective is inclusive networking platform for SDG 6 and SDG 13. So we're not just creating something new, rather we're bringing together networks that already exist. So networks around water and climate that already exists. The second core objective is the global impact monitoring system. So we're basically creating a directory of stakeholders working around SDG 6 and 13 to see how youths can be more involved. We have the next core objective, which is proper representation of the youth sector. And we have the youth participation and involvement in the coalition's processes. And lastly, youth constituency that forges partnerships to UN agencies, government, and private stakeholders. Next slide, please. All right, so to see if everyone was paying close attention to what has been presented earlier, if you could please just scan the QR code and answer the question, what does Unify stand for? And the link will also be copied in the chat. So what do you think Unify stands for? If you're unable to use the Mentimeter, please feel free to add your answers in the chat. I believe the link is in the chat. Okay, someone said, so thank you, Amit. Amit said, United International Federation of Youth for Water and Climate. Great job. You've been listening. Very good. Also has Salkat. You've mentioned both of the brandings of Unify. Okay, great. So let's move on to the next slide. Okay. So we have the pillars of engagement for Unify. There are 6 pillars of engagement, which is water and climate education, global mobility, capacity development, governance, active engagement, and resource mobilization. Next slide, please. We also have the organization bubble. So it's important to know how we as Unify operate. So in the bubble, we have the global movement, which is the institutions, organizations, and individuals, or which includes them. And it's basically the entire youth sector as a whole. We also have national focal points, global focal points, and the WCC Secretariat, and lastly, regional focal point and global operation. Next slide, please. So for global focal points, Unify will operate with 2 focal points in each level within the convention, global, regional, and national. For regional focal points, they will be elected amongst the national focal points to communicate and aid collaboration at the national level within their regions. And for national focal points, the 2 national focal points are elected at a country level by the active members amongst the national chapter. They will also ensure localization of Unify's objective and be the prime validators of Unify accreditation process. So by default, one of the NFPs will be part of the Unify convention and process. And in the next slide, so we have the Unified Convention. So the 2 global focal points, so as mentioned in the previous slides, I said there were 2 interim global focal points, which were Susmita and Ange. So the 2 global focal points, they're elected by Unified Convention, and they will engage with the high-level stakeholders, facilitate international gatherings, and propose adoption of relevant and inclusive changes at the global level. They serve as direct point of contact to the Secretariat. The global operations team is composed of the 14 regional focal points, structured to lead and co-lead one of each pillar based on their skills and expertise. They will ensure the operational requirements and be the final validators of the accreditation process. The Unified Secretariat will be in charge of coordination, facilitation, and liaison with the UN entities, as well as the WCC Secretariat. Okay, next slide, please. So here we will be talking about the Water and Climate Youth Development Plan and Agenda. So I'll provide some insights on how the survey was created and what it actually entails. So our team collected various inputs from different water and climate experts. And from these different reviews and articles and scientific papers, they came up with existing gaps and challenges that youths currently face at a local, national, and global level. So the gaps and challenges were then placed into a Google form, and we collected inputs from youths across the globe. And from these responses, we came up with 5 problem dimensions and possible solutions. Then from these solutions, we had validation workshops. So as I mentioned, we had, I believe I mentioned, or I'll mention later, we had one in Dushanbe and also in Egypt. So these validation workshops brought together youths to propose different projects, policies, and different programs and activities. So these will then be seen as solutions towards the YDPA. And during the UN 2023 Water Conference, we'll also be sending this to different UN agencies, governments, and stakeholders. And they'll be helping us to adopt these commitments. And we also have a monitoring and evaluation mechanism for the YDPA. Next slide, please. So Unify in numbers, we have over 4,500 members who are registered. And for the YDPA respondents, also over 4,500 from 171 countries. For our timeline, so this is the timeline from February 2022 till March 2023. During February, we had contact mapping and data gathering. During April, we had the data synthesis for the Water and Climate Development Plan and Agenda. In June, we started lobbying to the public and private stakeholders, and we presented during the Dushanbe water process. We also had a validation workshop in Dushanbe as well. In November, we had the COI 17 and COP 27 presentation. We also had a validation workshop there as well. And in March, so next month, there will be the UN 2023 Water Conference, and we will be presenting our outputs during that conference as well. Moving forward, we have our salient features, also known as internal rules and code of conduct. So in regards to safety, when you signed up for the membership, you should have read these rules and codes of conduct, right? For safety, we believe in having a safe working space, and safety is obviously our first priority. We also have rules on termination. So if you breach any of our internal rules and any of our codes of conduct, this will ultimately lead to a termination of your membership. In regards to harassment, we have a zero tolerance policy towards harassment. Like any other workspace, harassment is a big no for Unify. For intellectual property, as a member, you will get access to a lot of intellectual property of Unify. And as a member, you basically shouldn't misuse the information or the logos or credentials that are provided to you. We also have the attendance, so how you're involved. We'll keep check on your attendance, and as a member, you may have tasks as well, so we'll also look at that and we'll see if you're completing your tasks or not. Moving forward, we have meetings and procedures for Unify. So we have a list of different symbols you can use during meetings. For example, whether you agree on a certain topic or disagree. And We also have basically these are the basic notes that you would use when you're communicating in a large group or a large meeting, whether through Zoom or virtually. Next slide, please. For our communications channels, we will actually be using the Outlook and the emails. So we'll be communicating through Outlook, emails, and through WhatsApp as well. So we'll actually, so we're not using Slack or Telegram or Trello. We're moving our channels towards WhatsApp, email, and Outlook. And what's next? So if you want to be more involved in Unify, these are some opportunities and some that are available. Next slide. So we have NFP elections. If you're aware, Unify has been having NFP elections for the past 3 months, I believe. And in order for your country to be eligible, you need to have a minimum of 25 members per country. So please do check your emails. We have NFP elections almost every month. So if your country does not have an NFP, a national focal point, please do apply and represent your country. We also have the Global Operations Team Onboarding, which is pillar specific. As mentioned in the previous slide, we had 6 pillars of engagement. So Global Operations Team will focus on those 6 pillars depending on which pillar of engagement you're interested in or would like to work in. We will also be sending out volunteer positions that will be available as well. So please do check your emails for updates and on this matter. Next slide, please. All right, so we have a calendar of membership activities. Through this calendar, we have monthly membership updates every first Friday of every month. We have bi-weekly meetings between the Global Operations Team and the pillars. We also have bi-weekly meetings between the national focal points and volunteers, and monthly meetings between Secretariat and regional youth focal points, and monthly meetings between regional youth focal points and national focal points. All right, so now we've reached the last segment, or the last item within the agenda, which is questions and answers. I'll just look through the chats to see if there's any questions, and I'll answer as many as I can. So let's see. What is the duration of contract for the national focal point? I believe the duration is 1 year. And this is a volunteer position as well. Next question is, till when can we expect announcement of the national focal points of Pakistan? I believe the announcement will be coming this week, and it will be through emails as well. So we will be emailing all the national focal points who were who were not just elected, but they were chosen by the members. So that there will be an email that will be sent out to all of the members on which countries have newly elected focal points. Let's see, any other question? Who is the national focal point for India? Oh, okay. That's a good question. I don't know it from, oh, actually you can check our Unify social media platforms. They're there. I know one of them is Bumi. If you check our Instagram page, we also listed the national focal points for the countries. So for India, it's Bumi and Shrishti. Bumi and Shrishti, yes. Thank you, Maria. Bhumi Sharma and Shrishti. Yes, sir. What will be our initial role and responsibilities in Unify, and how do we know if there's NFP to a specific country or not? Um, what will be the initial role? Okay, sorry. In regards to whether or not you, for the national focal point, you can email us, and we can give you an update on whether your country has a national focal point. But if, for instance, the you don't see your country in the list, then it means that there are less than 25 members. So that means your country will not be eligible for a national focal point. So we'll send more on, and we'll also send more about your responsibilities and roles via email, especially in regards to the global operations team. Yes, sorry, for the global operations team, you will get an email. Mm, yeah. What else do we have? So, what is the procedure of becoming a? So, I think that you mean by national focal point. So, we have elections every month. Um, if you want more information, please do contact us through our emails, and we even have our Instagram and other social media handles. Thank you all for coming and joining us today. I hope this was an informative session for you, and we really do hope that we continue to work together and let our actions flow for tomorrow. Once again, if you have any more questions, do